Welcome back. You're still watching the Lifestyle segment on the Weekend Show, brought to you by Holocrunch Popcorn. Now, for those of you who are Nigerians, and for anybody watching this across the world, you will know that Nollywood is the second, and I would even say the biggest movie industry in the world. Besides the number of shows and movies that produced on a weekly basis, the quality and the value which we're bringing is just brilliant. And I like the fact that we're telling a story to the world. And to have a good show, you need a good storyteller and someone who can bring that to life. In 2022, a TV show called Halita won an AMVCA for Best Original Drama. My brother was on that show.
Wow, okay.
Yes, and it was produced by and directed by our guest, who has just also created another masterpiece.
Yeah.
Joining us in the studio to talk about Nollywood entertainment industry and how great his work has been, it's my pleasure to announce the presence of...
We have Dimbo Atiya.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
very
us.
much
He's
for
an award-winning film and television writer, producer, and director.
Thank you very much for having me. This is home, so...
This is home. Dimbo
Yes.
has been on this show in the last 5 years,
Yep.
almost every year.
Every year.
Every year. And
Absolutely.
it's always a pleasure having this conversation
Nice to be
with
here.
you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your latest production. I'll
Yeah.
let you announce it and tell us, give us a brief background about that.
About 6 years ago, a show called Sons of the Caliphate premiered the second season. And there was this big cliffhanger that we left, and we were supposed to do a third season of Sons of the Caliphate, but that never happened. And then in 2022, I think, no, 2021, I got a call from our executive producer, Mo Abudu. And she's not like, Dimbo, I think we need to go back and revisit this story and give a closure. It was almost like we left fangs hanging and everybody wanted, what has happened? You know, can we know what's happening? You know, and even the actors themselves. Like, I know that Yakubu Mohammed, who played Diko on Sons of the Caliphate, will always ask me, did Diko die? I said, I don't know. Even he himself wanted to know, you know. So when Mo Abudu called in 2021, she said, let's do a spin-off. You know, not necessarily a third, but then the spin-off should answer some of the questions that the fans have been asking, you know. And so my wife and I, who owned innovative television content, the writers and the creators, jumped on the opportunity for the sake of the fans. We really wanted to tell a story that would just give them some sort of ending, but then start a new story. So we went, you know, started writing what is called Wrath and Revenge, a Sons of the Caliphate story, which is war, the acronym Wrath and Revenge, which is war. And so we went to work. Took us about from 2021 to almost the ending of the mid-2022 in writing, doing the back and forth, you know, and then that was when we realized that, oh, okay, this is becoming something big, you know, because now Netflix was on board, you know, and so we decided, oh, wow, okay, you're going to do a Netflix show. We got to give this everything, you know. So jumped in and we did the most that we could, and in late 2022 we started filming somewhere in December, I think, December to January, and then the whole of last year, 2023, we were in post-production up until the 28th of December when it premiered. So it was a 6-part series, which is pretty much just to answer most of the questions that people had concerning the story. And you know, we're happy that we've given them their fix, and everybody seems to be fine now, so,
The problem with the fix is that you always want more.
Well, you always want more, of course.
I was going to say, I hope we won't have to wait another year or two.
Well, you know how it is. The people who call the shots will let us know what they think, you know.
Okay, so what aspects of war stood out the most for you as a director?
I think is the evolving of the actors. Because when you watch the second season and you see them in war, you realize that there's been a massive transformation of their craft and their performance. Binta became a beast in war. Like, I didn't even realize it when I was directing her during the show, but, you know, just sitting back during the post-production period and just watching her, I'll always send that message and I say, Omo, this thing, where did it come from? You know, I've seen how all of them, Moffett Duncan, I've worked with Moffett Duncan on other shows before now, but there was just something about how they carried the character. That was the most fulfilling thing about war. Seeing how they just went in and decided, you know what, I'm going to take on Nuhu. I'm going to take on... And then we had new characters who actually were introduced. Ifeanyi Kalu playing Buba Koda. this is an Igbo man who had never lived in the North, but I mean, it was the courage, it was the way he carried it. And then, you know, all the other characters in the story, it was just amazing. We had this Mekudi Cashman. I mean, I'd never met him before. I was flipping through something and I saw him on a clip. And I said, wow, this guy has some sort of presence. And we had this governor character. And when we dropped it, it was so believable. Some people would come here and say, this guy looks familiar. I'm like, no, you don't know.
He reminds me of a particular Nigerian governor
I'm sure.
or former governor,
But
as
it
the case
was
may be.
it's just the quality of the performance. If anything, people will tell you, oh, we did enjoy this guy bringing this character to life. That was really, and I think that also, that was helped by the quality of the writing, because, you know, I've worked with amazing writers. I never knew my wife was such a brilliant writer. I never had an idea, you know. So when we started writing, she took on the dialogues and it just gave it life. And so when the people were expressing it, there was just something about how it felt so, you know, relatable for even them, the actors, you know. So it was easy to just bring them out and just make you feel. So that part of War really, but then also the production value that we wanted to put into the show. There's something that I've told my entire team this year. We're working with a word called scale. In filmmaking, you have to scale right. Like, I mean, imagine if we were to do a scene in a film, like in a studio. Let's say this is a part of a series and it's a show. I mean, making it look real is pretty much what helps the audience to relax, because at this point, the audience is not thinking, oh, this room should have been like this chair should have looked like that, this studio, why does it look any... So when you scale it right, the people would just relax and enjoy it. So when we were doing the pre-production, we realized that we needed to make it look and feel good. Like, for example, Alicia's office, which is Kama Aviation, that is an aviation airline. These guys are talking $40-something million in revenue. And then you go and put them in one small, tiny room. It won't make sense. Like, people will be fighting the idea of, you know, so we decided to go, I mean, we went to Centenary City, and these guys were generous and, you know, and allowed us to use the entire space, and we had to brand it because I needed to do a lot of movement. So the scaling made it look real, you know, the houses and everything. So that sort of, you know, production value just makes the viewer just relax and enjoy, instead of battling with, oh, what should have or what shouldn't have been.
Yeah, speaking of performances, my favorite character so far is Binta.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I love a strong woman, a woman that knows that is a go-getter. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
She killed the role.
Yeah.
I saw Dimbo about a week ago, and I asked him that, does she know she's that good?
Exactly.
Does she know she's that good?
Yeah.
I think the humble thing about Rahama Sadao is that she always leaves the accolades for whatever she's done, and she looks ahead of what can I do next, you know. So she never carries that thing on her head, and she leaves it there. And when you call her next time for something, she's now, you know, because if you go to from the season 1 of Sons of the Caliphate, you will see how Rahama evolved. In the first season, she struggled, honestly, because this was her first time doing mainstream English, you know, because she's always been doing the Hausa thing. So she could speak English, but then there was this struggle with adjusting to a mainstream Nollywood production. But when we came for the second season, oh my God, something happened to her. Everybody noticed she had changed. Like, she went and got ready, you know, and then here we are now talking about War and how she pretty much just immersed herself and became this very powerful woman who practically was driving the narrative and carried the entire show, because that was what it was written to be.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite character?
So Rama Sadao and Mofe Duncan,
absolutely.
especially because these are people that some of us have seen, and you've seen other work they've done, but seeing them in these roles, it's not like you're seeing people you know.
Yeah.
They owned their characters
Absolutely.
so well
Yes.
that I found amazing. Talking about characters, just yesterday, the president approved appointment of a couple of people
Yes.
in the creative economy space, which for once, I was very impressed that we had that sector and there was some
Absolutely.
attention. The likes of Ali Nuhu, who
yes,
is an
being the new-
industry stakeholder, Charles Shagai, who is passionate, Obiasika,
Aisha
Ogi. Like, I saw those 4 names and I was like, there's hope for the
absolutely.
creative economy sector. People will talk about how Jennifer of Funke Akindele, and we'll always call her Jennifer, has just grossed 1 billion naira. Yes, there's production, yes, there's the split and all what's not. Tell us about numbers. How well is War doing, and how do you think this creative economy can contribute to boosting your sector, which is Nollywood?
War made #1 in 24 hours. And we're talking in a time and a period where there were so many new releases, and we're talking about global franchises, you know, big names coming out. I was worried that Berlin, which is from Money Heist, was coming out
Yeah.
the following day. That's a global franchise. Berlin went to do #1 globally. Like, we're talking about 20-something countries, and it's #1, but never made #1 in Nigeria because war stood in #1 for 14 days. You know, Berlin came, and the other shows, major shows came. You know, we were in the top 10 in 13 countries. You know, so far we do not know the numbers, how many have viewed it, but I'm very confident that it's such a good number. You know, so I mean, it did very well for a very locally produced show, and you know, something that, you know, we had to put everything into it. I'm happy that it did the 14 days and pretty much held its own against, you know, big names. You know, so yeah, I
And
mean,
it's still top 10.
I mean, it's still top 10. You know, we're still #2. Sons of the Caliphate is back on the top 10 at #8. So people watch War and then they realize, oh, you mean there's a Sons of the Caliphate? Then they run to go watch it. So it's still on the top 10. So we're really happy. I'm sure that will be on the top 10 for a while.
Investment, how important is it to invest in the sector?
Oh, you know, the investing in this sector is something that somebody said to me, said, it is now that Nollywood is making money. Like, Nollywood it's beginning to get to that place where, you know, revenues, people are, I mean, you're talking about $1 billion in the cinemas, which is, it means that we had a tough 2023, you know, and the purchasing power was really low. So people, you know, had to decide whether they wanted entertainment within the year or just survive. But I kind of feel like, you know, when it came for the holiday period, they just decided, you know, at least for once, let's splurge on something, you know. And so everybody went and brought out their little savings just so. And Funke Akindele was smart enough to produce such a relatable story in a time when everybody just wanted to relax, you know. And so when you had to go out there and spend 7,000, 8,000 naira, people didn't feel it. The bite wasn't there because, okay, we didn't do anything the whole of this year, just this one time. I mean, 8,000 naira will not hurt us. And everybody came out. So, I mean, it's the time for everything, you know. When you come to the creative economy in Nigeria, I think that it is the right time for investors to begin to look in. You know, one of the things that they must also understand is that filmmaking is not, you know, music production. It's not like we're selling, you know, things that commodities that can just go in. It takes time. You know, the biggest conversation that you have with investors is, so when am I getting my money back? The first thing they tell you is, okay, it's fine. I can do 500 million, 300 million, but when am I getting my money back? And so you say to them, maybe in like 21, 22 months, and they're like, why am I tying that money for 21, 22 months? Well, the thing is, it takes time to make a movie or a series. And then most times, you know, and these days it's the streamers that we're targeting, and it's not like they pay you one time. You know, there's a you know, spread of this payment. So most times it takes a year, depending on how good your deal is. You know, so we're saying that we can see the numbers. They are coming out. People are paying to go watch quality productions. I mean, she's at 1.2 billion now, you know, and this is just barely 2 months into this thing. And Fuki Akindele has this thing about keeping a movie in the cinema till maybe around February. If she stretches it, she might get to Easter. And, you know, so we're looking at almost getting to a 1.5 billion, you know. There is money in the industry. You can actually invest into and that's for people who have what's called long suffering. Like, I can put money here and forget about it, and it comes out on the other side. And for those of us who are in the creative sector, one of the things that you must build and you must create is a trust factor, some sort of integrity, because to be honest, it's not easy for anybody to take a huge amount of money to give you and say, go and produce it and come back in 21 months, you know. If the person is not that strong and does not understand it, it might be a difficult thing to do. So let it be that you have a whole setup where they can trust that you take this money in, you're investing in it, let them see that there's something that is happening, and at the end of the day to come up, because there is a huge demand for content. I know for a fact that I've had a conversation with streamers, and what they are saying to us is that local-based language productions we like. Do a whole glam story about beauty contest, but make it in Igbo language, we will buy it. You know, that sort of thing. Do a whole war film. If you like, do an action film, but let it be in Hausa. That is attractive to us. And that is why, I mean, the Korean shows are making sense. If you check it and see, most of the movies are coming from France, they always come in French language. So they prefer that you do it in local languages, and that's what most of us are targeting now.
Dimbo, Atiya, ladies and gentlemen. War is showing on Netflix. Please go watch War, and so we can have this conversation. And when you do, also watch Sons of Caliphate. I wasn't patient to go back to Sons of Caliphate, so you can watch War, then go back to Sons of Caliphate, or the other way.
Yeah.
But go back, watch it, and support Nollywood, support Nigerian movies. Always a pleasure having you here. We'll
Always a
definitely
pleasure
bring
to
you
be
back
here.
to talk about what's next.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because of time, that's all we can take. Make sure you watch War on Netflix. We'll take a quick break. When we return, more on The Weekend Show.